Good afternoon, dear guests. I am Dr. Nilufar Aminpour, and I have the honor to welcome you again to another Provost Roundtable broadcast from BSBI, Berlin School of Business and Innovation, Alte Post. The approval of the new German law relating to immigration has a significant importance. And because of this, the topic that has been chosen to be discussed today is employment and job opportunities in Germany, future prospects and perspectives. But before starting, let me welcome all our guests, the Provost, Professor Kyriakos Kouveliotis, Mr. Christian Winghaus, Mr. Ernst Suganandaraja, Dr. Farshad Badi, Dr. Muniruddin Lal Mahmoud, and Dr. Kamyar Ismaili. For those who need to know more about our guest, I take the responsibility to introduce our provost and talk a little bit about his educational background and his career. And after that, I will ask our guests to individually present themselves. Professor Kyriakos Kouveliotis is the Provost and Chief Academic Officer of the Berlin School of Business and Innovation, or BSBI. And he has an impressive background, academic background, as I can explain it, as he has a PhD in European integration and international relations from Newcastle University, an MA in diplomacy from Lancaster University, a certificate in linguistics from Bangor University, United Kingdom, and a BA in English Literature and Linguistics from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, Greece. He has also completed 2 cycles of postdoctorate research, one on decision and policy making, and the other on conflict resolution and crisis management. Professor Kouveliotis has worked in various research groups and has been a provost and taught in many universities and educational organizations globally. These include City Unity College, Newcastle University, University of Sunderland, Doree College, University of Indianapolis, Hellenic Air Force War College, and Hellenic Naval War College, among others. He is an expert in developing new curricula, programs, syllabi, and building new global educational networks and partnerships with institutions from the United States, UK, France, Italy, Switzerland, and Ireland. He has created partnerships and collaborations. He has also developed about 100 new academic programs at all levels, surpassed the completion of 5,000 dissertations, and published 12 books and numerous original scientific articles. His academic publishing track record includes a variety of papers on political, economic, and educational issues. Apart from his academic career, Professor Kouveliotis has also served as a scientific advisor to the Greek Minister of Defense, Deputy Minister of Development and Competitiveness, and General Secretary of Communication and Mass Media. He was appointed by the Minister of Education as a member of the governing committee of the Hellenic Open University. He also holds various professorships in institutions around the world as Honorary Chancellor and founder of Longford International College in Ireland, Professor at Unituno University in Rome, Italy, and President of Athenaeum Liberal Studies in Europe and India. Recently, he received a fellowship in the Royal Society of Arts and created the not-for-profit organization, named Global Degree Foundation in The Hague. Now I would like to ask the guests to introduce themselves. Let's start with Mr. Christian Winkhaus.
Yes, hello, it's nice to be here. My name is Christian Winkhaus. I'm a lawyer in Germany and also in Spain, an abogado. Since more than 20 years, I'm working as a specialist in labor law within the law firm Schirp and Partner here in Berlin. Since I have also Spanish background, I studied in Spain and also have a lawyer's degree from Spain. I have a lot of clients from Spain and Latin America, and I help them to invest in Germany, and I also help immigrants from this part of the world to set a foot here in Germany. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ernst?
Hi, I'm Ernst Sulandaraja. I'm a Managing Director of BSBI and as well as Managing Director of University of Europe for Applied Sciences. Furthermore, I'm working also as a German lawyer here in Berlin, mainly in the fields of corporate law. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Badi.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Farshad Badi. I hold a PhD in Human-Centered Communication Informatics with a special focus on logic, cognitive science and learning science. And after my PhD, I had around 5 years of postdoctoral research in logical and cognitive aspects of conceptual dynamics in human and machine interactions. So I'm very interested, I'm very happy to be a member of BSBI, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you today.
Dr. Moniruddin?
Yes, my name is Moniruddin Al-Mahmoud. I'm from Mauritius. I've worked previously in the consulting industry as well as in the financial sector and in the banking sector. And within the banking sector, I've had the opportunity to work in both at the regulator, the central bank, as well as in the private banking. And over the years, more than 10 to 15 years, I've been lecturing part-time in various universities in Mauritius, in Paris, in Strasbourg, and as well as the group of Honoris University. I'm here at BSBI to mainly to teach strategic management, Islamic finance, and digital finance. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ismail.
Yeah, hello everyone. And first of all, I want to thank you, Professor, for these amazing roundtables and giving this opportunity to me to attend in one of them. I am Dr. Kamiyar Ismaili. I used to work as an official customs officer for 10 years in my country, and then nowadays I'm working as a lecturer here in BSBI. My academic background, I am a PhD of Human Resource Management, and my research interest is human resource sustainability. So I think this topic would be an amazing topic for me to be discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Professor, now the stage is yours.
Okay. Thanks very much, Nilufar, also for your kind words, and I would like to welcome all our guests. It's an honor for us to be here. Let me remind you of why we're having, very briefly, this Provost Roundtable. Every month we select a topic that it really concerns the general public. Because we want to combine what we offer to our students here with some, let's say, open-minded processes to the society as well. And the previous month, one very important issue had to do with changes in the labor law in Germany. And that's why we have these prestigious guests with us and colleagues to discuss how these are going to affect young people, mostly our students, but also the existing labor force. And as you remember, we also had issues in regards to the energy, to geopolitics, to conflict in Europe, the future of European integration, and so on. We have already arranged with Dr. Aminpour all the future topics, and unless there is something like a crisis that we need to tackle, we have prepared already, I think, the next 6 roundtables until the end of February. which is really great. Now, before I start asking you some questions in order to hit up the discussion, I want to, because I have written down 5 important points, and I want to, for you to keep them as a reference, because I think they're directly involved with what we will discuss today and potentially explain why this law change happened recently. One thing we should take for granted in Europe, but also in Germany in particular, is the so-called aging of population, because that changed the internal political, economic and social structure of the society, but also of the future professions. As I always used to say to our students, those that they will embark on their careers in the next 10 to 15 years, 80% of the professions at that future age have not been invented yet. So take this into consideration as well. The second point, if we look the economic, legal and political history in the last 20 years, after the strengthening of what we used to call globalization process, that led to hyper-globalization. So we overdid it in a sense. And that created low inflation and stable growth for at least 2 decades. But now, this great moderation, as it is called in economics, led also to some changes. And the third point has to do with all these medium income states that suddenly they becoming consumers as well. Because of that stability, they had the means to start consuming goods. And that created a new situation, a little bit problematic, because that means we moved from production of goods and services, where we had a little bit of inflation, to also a lot of services. And when you have problems like the pandemic or the logistic crisis caused in the production and transferring of goods, so that we had, let's say, an inflation there, but in the services, the situation was dramatic. And when countries, they are based so much on services and not so much on production, that creates other internal problems. Another point has to do with what we know and what we call as economic crisis. You remember what happened in the United States after the Lehman Brothers collapse and all this in 2008? Indirectly, we had the crisis because of the pandemic and the problems in logistics. But as you all know, and you should anticipate more crises like this to come in the future. And I think now with this differentiation of interest rates and all the money that are in the banks and they don't know how to use it, and what happened in Switzerland a couple of months ago and also in the Deutsche Bank here, which we are lucky because it's too big to fail. But anyway, I don't think we learned so much the lessons back in 2008. And all these different things that I mentioned has created a completely new environment for politicians and for the economists to see what lays ahead in regards of employment in Europe. So, Dr. Camera will ask a question for you that I have prepared.
Yeah.
So, in the framework of what I described, based on your knowledge on HRM, and on the other professional experience you had, what are the essential skills and qualifications that German employers currently looking for hiring people, particularly after this new labor law?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I would like to start explanation about these skills and qualifications that German employers are currently looking for with the help of a term or expression. It is sort. I want to describe the employee's condition to a sort before this law and after this law. Before this law, the law was about the many restrictions and limitations for the employees to have the opportunity to come to this market. For example, a high level of salary for reaching the blue card rates, many degrees that they ask, experience that they ask, many restrictions, even for some kind of expertise like IT that they need too much. But again, for the same expertise, they add many restrictions. for their employees. It means that they try to cut the employees and to make a kind of alternatives like a diamonds, and it is easy to choose for great high quality technical skills. And it is one sword. It is a sword with one side, a one-edged sword. It means that the employees are like a sword for the company, and they are cutting their problems with the high quality of their technical skills. But with your explanation, after a while, many things happen, globalization, coronavirus, they understood that they need a variety of skills, but technical skills. Even we know that technical skills is vital for professional workers. We need other skills next to these skills. That's why when we look to the factors of this new German law, we understood that they are trying to reduce these restrictions to make an opportunity for new employers, potential employers, maybe with lower skills in technical, but in other skills. These skills are like communication skills, conflict management skills, leadership skills, let's say emotional intelligence skills. They are looking for more sustainable workers, not just specialists. Yeah? And I can describe it as a double-edged sword. It means that even the technical side is a little bit less sharper. The other side, the other skills, let this sword more practical for the employers, and they are looking for this type of skills. Nowadays, they care about how to transfer this kind of skills to the next generation of their employees, and they are looking to choose employees with these kind of skills in order to have more productive employees for the future.
Okay, that's good. Dr. Farsad, based on what your colleague just mentioned regarding the skills and the different qualities, we highlighted before that the period that we are now after the, let's say, post-globalization era, it's governed by what we call in business administration a change management period. Actually, in the past, it used to be something new, but now we experience change management process every day. So in regard to that, how do you analyze this new legislation in relation to the change management processes?
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you very much, Professor. First of all, I want to say a word from Heraclitus from 2,000 years ago. The only constant of the life is change. And this is really appreciated. So change management has a special focus on three important concepts. First of all, what is the setting? What is the platform and context? One. Second, what is the experiments and what is the interal conceptual concepts? And the third one, what are the relationships? So, in my opinion, this is fully a proactive change because this is not in comparison to any kind of other agent of change. This is something that Germany has planned for many years. This is something based on full consideration based on the concept of change. So if I want to analyze the components of change, what is the meaning of change in context and platform? Something like change in bureaucratic hurdles, something like change in perception of the world based on the concept of Germany as a destination for all people who just want to join and want to do something here. What about the meaning of change in interconnections and interconceptual concept? Something like integration of all human beings together in order to do something together, in order to create something together. Something like immigration policies, and something like conservation, actually, and conservative oppositions. These are interconceptual concepts which all are changing. And the third one about the intraconceptual concepts, like a lot of people who are coming here with different linguistic skills, with different qualificational aspect. So that's why, in my opinion, this is a full change management scenario. Please, I do not focus on the goodness or badness, because I believe that this is a lot of topics about the politics, about the cognition, about the psychology. But I believe that this is a full change management scenario in a proactive way, in a planned way, with a lot of analytics and the strategies behind that, that before that Germany had a very good study about the environment and about the world, and this is going on as a kind of pioneer in this way.
That's very interesting, since you mentioned all the different nationalities and ethnicities. BSBI now, we have in our community students and staff for 102 countries. And this is amazing how in one environment and under one community, we have all these different cultures and of course different ideas, ideologies, backgrounds and history. Mm-hmm. And a projection of this is also Germany, German companies, the 16 different German states, and everything that happens in them. So, Christian, I will come to you as an expert lawyer. So, according to your opinion, how does this new German law change the landscape of job offers, immigration, what happens to foreign people, and if you can elaborate with some of these components? So what are the new things that this new legislation brings to the workforce in Germany?
It will bring a lot of more specialists than we have already now, because the law is more wide than before, not only IT specialists, but also for other qualified people. So if you have another high degree, for example, from the States, from another state, you can come with this degree and work here in Germany. And not even in this same area, this is new, you can also work in another area after some time. For example, now you can enter Germany as a chemistry specialist, and then after 5 years you can work in a physician or another part. This is very important. Secondly, now they want to introduce an opportunity card for people who have no education, no academic degree in their country. If they had at least worked for 2 years in their country or a similar degree, they can come with this to Germany and they can try to find a job here. This is what we call opportunity card. This is going to take place only, this is now the law is from June of this year, but this is going to be this June.
So it's already happening then?
No, it's not happening, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be transferred only in June of next year, because this opportunity card is combined, because not everybody gets these opportunities, combined with some conditions. For example, you get some points, there's a point system, and that it depends on the qualification you have, what kind of education did you have there. The language skills, how good is your German or English. And then the professional experience you have, how many years did you work in abroad. For all of these things you get certain points. Also, they try to evaluate your potential. For all of the things you get certain points, and after these points they choose some of these employees and they have the chance to come to Germany, even this is new, even if they don't have a concrete job offer. That means these people can come here, and this is a very good initiative, because you can come, you have your experience, the only thing you don't have is language and maybe the culture, which you're not used to because you don't know the German culture. You come and you can come with your experience you have, and people here the companies here will work with you and find a job with you. So you even have the right to work up to 20 hours a week in another area until you find a real job. This is also new. And then you can stay here in Germany and work for this. Another thing is that also another part of the column, let's say, is the column of experience. Also other people who have 2 years of work and experience in abroad, they also may come and may work together with the German employees and companies, and they have to recognize their experience and what they did there, and then they can come and have these things. Then what the German immigrant law also did now, they took into consideration finally, and I think it's also a very important move, the people who were asylum seeking here in Germany, because those people up to now, they couldn't do anything, they were blocked. And now they started to introduce, to let them, there's one condition, they have to be in Germany before the end of March of this year, and they have to seek asylum. If they fulfill these two conditions, they can work even here in Germany if they have an education or degree, so they can start working here and use this time. This is also new, and then there's also another amplification with the West Balkan states, Serbia, North Macedonia, etc., 6 states. Until now, only 25,000, even not educated people could come to Germany, and now they doubled it to 50,000, because the need of people who work in construction and in hospitals is immense, is huge. As you mentioned, people don't work anymore, they're too old. So we need these people, and they come, and they are a big help for Germany. They may stay here up to 8 months, and we hope that they, because there is no condition, they don't have to learn German, or they don't have to know this. And I hope as a labor lawyer that there will not be an abuse of their few German knowledges, but it's a big chance for them to come. And finally, what else is there? The Balkan states, yeah, they're interesting, and then they also, with the blue card, they also lowered the entry level. They don't have to gain as much money as before. Now it's only 40,000, 42,000 euro, which you will have to earn.
This is a significant change.
Because the levels sometimes were too high, the limits, so other people can also enter. And this is also enough to
and this is applicable also for people that they already work in Germany?
No, this is for the future period.
See.
And it's not right now, this is future now, what I'm talking about. This is in March, this is going to take place. And the system with the points, this is going to take place in, I think it's June of 24, because it is supposed to be easier to have more immigrants here or more working men here. But if somebody has to read and to evaluate this, and this is a lot of work.
And I think that the German government, they need to invest in data servers, because all this data that people voluntarily will give, you understand what is going to happen and how many thousands or maybe millions of people will apply.
Of course, they have to read this in English, to understand this, to evaluate this. This is a lot of manpower which you need. And then later, of course, because I think, at least I noticed this, especially in Brandenburg and Berlin, the companies also have to really admit, and they have to work with foreign people, because sometimes they don't implement that we talk English in the company. They don't, they have to be more open sometimes. And this is also a step from ours, which we, not as lawyers, but also as HR or CEOs from companies, you have to create a climate which allows a diverse and international, multinational ambience. And there's also some work to do. That's my impression.
It's very interesting what you mentioned about the lack of skilled workers, especially in construction, and you mentioned North Balkans, these countries. Yeah. I want you to think and multiply this to 100 times, and this is what happened to Britain after Brexit.
Yes.
Because originally they wanted to prohibit all this, let's say, working immigration stream, but now nobody can build new homes.
Yes.
And they have huge issues. And this is happening here for different reasons, but imagine in the European Union at least, we have, because of the common market, free movement of people, goods and capital. There they don't. It's even more complicated. So it's a lesson also for other countries. Now, Dr. Muniruddin, I hope I didn't murder your name.
No.
I will come to you. So my question, what are the significant challenges faced by non-German job seekers, and what strategies do you recommend in order to overtake these challenges? These challenges and all these different new things that Christian just mentioned.
Yes. What I have done here, I prepared something very interesting. I look at it from a holistic view, and I've divided it into 3 parts. First, I look at it, although we say non-German job seekers, we may be thinking that we're looking at it from a person. But when I look at the problem falls into 3 categories. We look at it at private firms, number 1, and then we look at it as an individual himself who applied for the job, and then I will look at the problem from the government themselves.
That's interesting.
Now, when you look at it from the private firm, we find that these information that I'm sharing today, they are mainly from OECD and the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. So I've got the data from there and I've
So for the economic cooperation and development,
Yes.
mainly, okay.
All right. So when you look at the private firm today, we have a problem of recognizing the foreign vocational experience. I mean, this is one of the main issues that you mentioned. And what is happening right now, and I believe that the new law will change that, the vocational experience recognition is highly formalized, number one. And you need to meet with a German standard, as well as it is very time consuming and it is cost incentive.
It is.
And the new law have taken all these measures to simplify them. But there is another problem which has not been discussed, and I found it very important, all right? I did not find it in any of the literature, that based on my previous experience, we have what we call an information asymmetry. Now, who built a nation? Like in Italy, for example, family companies. In Germany, we have corporation as well as SMEs. Now, here in Germany, SMEs do not possess the international connection. Who do they go when they want to apply, when they want to seek for potential employers? Because they don't have the same budget, they don't have the same technology, they don't have the same resources like the corporation. So we have a problem of information asymmetry, and I believe that you mentioned something earlier about a database. I believe that this is what we call the Service Center for Professional Recognition, which is being set up, where they can go over there and seek for the advice and getting all the information. Now, the third problem that private firms as well as individuals face today is the visa policy. Now, we know that most third country who wants to enter Germany required a visa. I'm one of them when I applied, okay, although we are a diplomat, it took us some time. So this is one of the issues. And now let me share something interesting, my personal experience. I would jump to the government. One of the issues that we have when it comes to job seekers is the administrative infrastructure in Germany. They are pushing for digitization for some time, but we haven't seen it. But surprisingly, let me tell you, when I was in Djibouti last year, when I applied for my visa, I received it within a week. And who is behind the technology? And who provided them the technology? And who is running the technology? German companies. That's surprising. Interesting that the technology is not being offered here, but it's offered by German, all right, in Djibouti. And it works perfectly well. Now, going back now to the government side, then I will look at the end, the problem things.
Just highlighted which is the fastest state that anybody can get a visa to come to Germany. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we also, as far as the government, I don't know whether this will, the new Immigration Act has looked into this. We have what we call the development impacts of recruitment. It's fall under the development impacts of recruitment. There is a contrast between what we call the interior and the security policy versus the labor market. What the market is asking may not necessarily what they want, those who approve the visa. So we have this contrast between these two. So this is something perhaps policymakers should be looking into when they look into how to implement the new skills. At the same time, another problem that the government will face, the selecting partner countries. We heard a lot of criticism today that they prefer Philippines, Indonesia, rather than going to Africa. I mean, selecting the right partner is another issue. Measures against unfair recruitment practices, workers recruited by non-states, which is not mentioned in the Act, all right, where organizations, they are called non-states here, actors, they recruit directly, all right, so there are some unfair measures. At the same time, there are several criticisms which was published with regard to the international standard for fair recruitment. And the new act does not mention anything about ILO. Perhaps you both would tell us more. They don't mention anything about LLO. So these are the challenges. Now, as far as the individual, we know very well, number one, I won't say language skills. I would say adequate language skills. You may know a few words, you may know a few sentences, but how to adequately speak within the firm, within your organization, with your senior, with your staff, with the customers, is the main issue. So this is something that we have to address. Lagging behind in education. This is something that, based on the individual, they may not have the education, but something very interesting when it comes to the new Immigration Act, they have defined now, let's say for example, if you lack of a certain education, you fall under what we call the substantial deficiency or differences. So you will be noted under substantial differences. So this is what is lagging from the vocational, from German, from other countries, which will be taken later on during your stay in Germany. This is how they solve the problem. Other issues as far as individual is concerned, we have discrimination, we have uneven access to employment and decent housing, social services. Housing and social services, we know very well, is one of the biggest challenges. If you're coming to Germany, you need to look for a place. At the moment, we have a big problem when it comes to the social and the housing real estate. Another big problem that the individual will face, and this is my last point, is the mismatching jobs and overqualification in the case of highly educated migrants. I mean, some of the individuals, they're highly qualified and they can't fit in. And it could be because of the not having the adequacy language skills, so they can't fit in. So this is basically the problem and the challenge, how to solve the challenges. Thank you, and back to you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. It was very interesting, your approach, because you try to combine the private sector, the companies, the individuals, and the government. I hope this is not a Bermuda Triangle and not developed like that, but it's a very interesting holistic approach. Maybe you can design a model of that and publish it potentially. Anyway, but you mentioned, you made some important assumption in regards to vocational training. So since our audience is a bit wide, I also want to mention something. Higher education usually is divided between two sectors, what we call typical and what we call non-typical. Typical education is academic and vocational. That means after you complete a circle of studies, you get a certificate, you get a diploma, or you get a degree. Which in Europe we follow the European qualification framework from 1 to 8. 8 is a doctorate. Now, a huge part of future employees in Germany and in Europe, they have the so-called non-typical education. And in the EU and in UNESCO/United Nations, the last 20 years, they are discussing how to certify the non-typical education, because that non-typical education maybe doesn't come with a degree or diploma, but it comes with skills and competencies, which is exactly what we need in a Europe that is getting older every day. The situation is still in progress, but it's very interesting if sometime, and maybe if we can generate something to sit down and write potentially a green Bible and make some predictions, and maybe to give some advice to other colleagues or the people that they take this decision. But it's important that, to know that so far we couldn't find a way to symmetrically certify non-typical education. Now, Ernst, I will come to you. As an expert lawyer yourself, and for your advice, what are the legal aspects that foreign job seekers should be aware when considering find employment in Germany?
Yes, thank you for your question. Let me explain the following in first place. It's actually not a change in labor law. It has primarily nothing to do with labor law. What has happened is it was a change in the immigration. Yeah? So it's therefore called Skilled Immigration Act, yeah? Or Skilled Employers Workers Immigration Act. Many points already my colleague has elaborated on, but let me focus on the most important thing. This new law is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is qualification, second pillar is experience, and third pillar is potential. Yeah? Depending on which pillar you are applying to come to Germany. So, for example, when you are a qualified worker, of course, the first thing you need to get is a visa, a residence permit or a settlement permit. Otherwise, you are not allowed to enter Germany. This is the first thing you need to take care of. Furthermore, to get a visa, the authorities will ask for an employment contract, mostly. So it is very important that you have a written employment contract. I mean, you can have a valid employment contract, only by communicating verbally. This is also possible by law, but of course not advisable. So, written employment contract, a residence permit. These are, or a work visa or a settlement permit. There's several residence titles available. And depending on your qualifications or on your focus, you need to pick the right one. Yeah. Now, I would like to get on some points that are less legal, more practical, but I think it's also very important. Familiarize yourself with taxes. Germany is a high tax country. And
yeah, we all know that. We can feel it every day. Yes.
And for example, if you still keep your old citizenship and maybe also have double residences, so in your home country and also in Germany, it can be that you will be taxed twice, so in your home country as well as in Germany. Germany has so-called double tax treaties with a lot of countries. It's worth it to have a view, or at least to get some consultation on the tax implication of your job application here in Germany. What else? Make sure that you will have a health insurance. Yeah? Health insurance in Germany is mandatory, so you will not have a choice or not to have a health insurance. You only can select between private and public health insurance in general. But the private health insurance is also not accessible for everyone. It's only accessible when you have a specific threshold in your salary. So, according to my opinion, these are the most important things you need to consider before coming to Germany. Of course, other things will follow up. For example, when you finally manage to move to Germany, then you need to find housing and or to rent an apartment. After you have done this, you need to register with the authorities your new address. This is also important. If you don't do it, you can be fined, or other measures will be taken.
You need for a bank to open a bank account.
Bank account. This is also an important point. Bank account will only be provided to you if you can prove that you have a residence here, an address and a residence title. What could be relevant as well is make sure that your qualifications that you have acquired in your home countries are recognized in Germany. Maybe you need also a German translation. Germany is on one hand a very progressive country, but also very old school in terms of language. I mean, we are living here, or we are staying here in Berlin. Berlin is a bit different to the rest of Germany because it's more international. But when you go outside of Berlin, then you will face difficulties when you don't speak the language. So this is also very important to learn the language. Integrate yourself, become German. This is your goal. Actually, these points I would consider as the most important. and the first steps before coming to Germany.
And that was very useful because all these are practical advice that our friend Ernst gave, and they also concerned all new people, students and professionals that want to immigrate in Germany. Now, Dr. Muniruddin, I will come to you again. Based on what you mentioned about companies and the government, so is there any provision for some kind of support or assistance that German government provide to businesses to comply with these new changes in the immigration law? And before you comment on that, and Ernst was very right to say that the actual labor law didn't change, that the immigration law changed, but also to what Christian mentioned before about the asylum. This is not something that concerns only Germany. It was a decision for changes in the asylum and immigration seeking people at the European Union level. And that has to do with people not having to return to the country of entry and so forth. So that means it's also the European perspective we need to think about it. So what kind of support or assistance there is for this new legislation?
When I read this question, the first thing that comes to my mind, because I used to follow national budget overseas, we used to look at what will be the tax incentive offered to the company when they want to look into a new policy. What are the other incentives that companies receive? But unfortunately, like you mentioned very clearly, when it comes to tax, there are no tax rebate offered to any companies who wants to employ anyone under the new Skills Immigration Act. So we put aside the tax. So the tax, there's no one. However, there are some interesting support, okay, but they are useful. Number one, which I find it interesting, I did not find it in the literature, but I did not find any of these in the Act. It did not mention. For example, there are no restrictions on the number of skilled workers you want to employ. It did not mention any place that in some places you need to have a ratio of 1 to 2 or 1 to 5, but no restriction was mentioned. No preliminary approval is required from the Federal Employment Agency. You want to employ someone, all right, as far as you need. But what are the main support that they are offering? Like, look at the support that they're offering. They have set up a fast track, all right? And what is this fast track is all about? They have an information and guidance. You want information to employ someone? You go, you knock their door, they will give you information. We will facilitate their visa processing. We will recognize, will help you to recognize the foreign qualification, as well as what is interesting, the Foreign Office, they are conducting job fair and recruitment events. All right, so in other words, if we know that there are potential of skills of employers in a particular region where they are conducting a job fair, then an example would be like BSBI could join there and sit down and meet people. So this is one of the support, as well as they will be providing language support, which is a major issue.
You already see a business opportunity. To call in some countries there is a process which is called the fast stamp.
Exactly.
So you pay a fee to a local advising company and they do all this for you.
Exactly.
Because my impression is that, I don't know yours, but in the last 10 years, like we have a family doctor that we rely, now it's also our accountant and tax advisor. It's something, it's part of the family. So it's very important. I have to come to Ernst to briefly ask for your opinion in regards to the recruitment and the hiring process. So this new change, is it going to change also these processes?
Yes, I'm convinced of this because it eases a lot, it widens the possibilities, it is less restrictive. And this, of course, is a great help for HRs. So in general, the possibilities are given in a form that were not existing beforehand. For example, Germany needs 400,000 qualified workers every year. So you can imagine every year. every year.
400,000.
400K. So you can imagine what kind of workload is expected to come to this country in the next years. And the government, the German government is aware of this issue, and this is the goal of the new Skilled Immigration Act, to ease the possibilities to come to Germany and to ease also the restrictions. So to summarize it, it will eases the possibilities, it will eases the work of HR. You need to provide less documents. Everything that counts is your talent, maybe your qualifications, but even if you don't have a qualification, formal qualification yet, this new law opens also for you a possibility to become at least a qualified worker one day. And so I'm looking very much forward to the developments in the future.
Good. Thank you, Ernst. Christian, from a legal standpoint, what are the major implications of this new law for foreigners in terms of their rights and obligations when they're here in Germany?
Okay,
they will come, let's say, from next June 2024.
So first of all, to come here to get installed here, they really have to prove what they did there and what their education was. Of course, now it's going to be easier for them because they can recognize these degrees or their education when they were here in Germany. This is new, and this is really easier for them than to start here. This is what we call a recognition partnership. They can come here and they can work here, and then in this time they can prove what they did in the past. So this is much easier for them. Then when they were here, from the legal point of view, I would also say, when they're here, they behave, they pay their taxes, they should try to learn German, not to become a German, and this I'm not, I don't want them to become a German. It's enough if they start learning a little bit German, and they shouldn't behave, they shouldn't commit crimes, I tell it like this, because there were especially, these facts here. But anyway, if they're here, there were really no special things to consider if they're here once. Except they have a plus, they can even hire or they can even ask for their parents. They can also come now easier than they could come before.
Yeah,
this
I was
is
about
also,
to ask that, but yes.
This is something where they can think they only have to gain a certain amount of money, and they have to assure especially the housing, because housing is, as we mentioned already, a very big problem here. The government and the companies, the prices are so high now they can't really invest in more housing, so it's difficult for them. But if they can prove that they have a house, they can also take their parents-in-law. But if they're here once, there's nothing really special to consider except paying taxes and trying to integrate.
Try to learn German, pay your taxes, and try not to do criminal acts.
And if we know the last statistics, the German, the surveys, let's say, the Germany is not a country where the immigrants feel so well. Many of them return. There are countries where they feel better, like Spain, Mexico, only from the well-being feeling.
Maybe because here they have to work.
From the conditions, from the labor conditions as well. They were very satisfied for the condition because they get a lot of money. They were fair treated. But in terms of personal contacts, many of them, some of them at least, said, okay, in other countries there's a better welcome culture than here in Germany. But I hope they will start learning and improving this.
Okay, thanks. Dr. Kramer, I mentioned before that here in BSBI, for example, we are a community of 102 people from different countries. And from an HR perspective, how this new law is going to impact diversity in German companies?
Yeah, thank you for
some of them, they're not so lucky like us to have all these different country representation.
Yeah, actually, I want to talk about this question with an example. if we talk about the purpose of any business, the purpose of any business is to make the customers satisfied. Yeah, and who are the customers for HR department or HR professionals? The employees. So they try to make the employees satisfied, and by this satisfaction, they will bring commitment to the organization. They will sacrifice for the organization. So if we look to the theories of satisfaction, maybe like Herzberg theory, 2 factors, there are some hygienes and motivators to make your employees satisfied. And if we take a look to the previous law with the high restrictions, many limitations, it was a tough law for people to come here for a job and finding a job in this market. But after the points that all of you mentioned, like reducing the rate of the salary for blue card, many other options like having your family with you, your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, also your parents, your kids.
For the mother-in-law, are you sure?
Yeah.
Opinions vary.
Yeah, and actually I have to say that they have gone furthermore. They give this permission to refugees to withdraw their request, and they are working on this great potential group of people. It means that they will give this permission to them to bring their families here to Germany, and these are all potential people for the future workplace. So how diverse it would be, it is obvious. We are making these great hygienes and also many motivators to make a great image for this country. As Christian mentioned, that it is not a well country for immigrants. They are trying to make a better image for the future and then make it more diverse in the future, I think.
That's very interesting. Dr. Farsad, I don't want to use the term human resources management. I prefer what I call human capital. I think it's more accurate. So, how can any individual be supported by this new legislation from the perspective of human capital? What is the kind of support people should expect?
Very nice. Professor, as you mentioned, we are getting into the age of meta-globalism. Meta-globalism believes that we are interested in services.
By the way, let me interrupt you and praise ourselves, because we just published a book as BSBI, you also contributed, in what we should expect in every field of business activity, from tourists to health and everything, after what we call the meta-globalization era.
Exactly.
Sorry for the interruption. You can continue.
Exactly. Actually, this meta-globalization is a philosophy. It has root in collectivism. It has root in collectivism. But of course, I do not want to get into very philosophical aspects of this, but somehow, in meta-globalism, we believe in services. We believe in values. In the modern world, humans are talking to each other by means of values. There are some theories in production management that the companies are not anymore making competition by means of their productions, but by means of the values that they are creating for their own actually customers or whatever, whoever is coming around the system. But in meta-globalism, we are relied on collectivism. Maybe it can be believed that collectivism came out of Platonic point of view, and individualism came out of Aristotelian point of view. I am personally very interested in individualism, but this German law is relied on collectivism, but it is also respecting individuals. This means that there is maybe somehow like a paradox, that the philosophy is collectivism, but it's going to value individual human beings.
You know, give me an idea, maybe 1 year after the practical application of this, maybe we'll have another round, and then we will see. Now, I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to ask briefly for a one-sentence statement from all of you in regards if you want to give an advice or a prediction of what is going to happen in employment in Germany. And I will start. And my prediction is that everything we have discussed, it will generate to a huge housing problem in Germany. And my advice at the same time is whoever wants to immigrate or come here to work, you have to start looking for accommodation as early as possible. Now, Christian, what is your prediction or advice?
Yeah, this is yeah, that was a very good point from you. They should face these difficulties, and if you come here, you don't have to. You have to follow your aim and your objective, and you will find a solution. It's a social state. Many institutions will help you to get through it and to find your place here.
Okay, Ernst.
Yeah, we have discussed the several possibilities for foreigners to come to Germany. Germany needs qualified workers, so Germany will focus on talents, will attract talents, but it will be also a challenge to keep them in the land, because there are also this housing problem that you just mentioned, or taxes maybe. Other countries are less tax restrictive, let me call it like this. So these are some tasks that must be solved by the German government. But Germany is learning quite fast, and I'm sure that it's a country that will handle these issues.
Good.
Yeah.
Advice or prediction?
Actually, I believe in competency. I believe that the most important vocabulary in human capital management is competency, because it's a function from human beings into organizations. And that's why we need to have a better understanding and ontological analysis of competency. I'm also writing a book chapter on how artificial intelligence in the modern world is supporting competency analytics, because it has some hidden aspects like actually like motives, like personalities, and some hidden, visible aspects like knowledge and skill. So this is very good that modern companies make a balance between the hidden and the visible aspect of the company.
I'm pretty sure that with all this data and all these applications of people that they will come, that definitely artificial intelligence is going to use to do this initial, as we use a French word, it's called triage, as we do in the emergency units in hospitals. Your advice or prediction?
Yes, my advice. I think I would go back to a certain foundation that I haven't seen yet, and it has not been discussed in detail. Perhaps I did not see it myself. It's there. When we say we are looking forward for skilled immigrant, or we're looking forward for skilled workers because there is a shortage. But I haven't seen that the government has come forward to clearly define the sectors that required specific skills. Because I personally had the opportunity to work on a project in the Southeast, where we went and interviewed all the companies in a particular city and getting to know how many employees were they employed, what are the qualifications, okay, and based on that, we advised the Ministry of Higher Education the kind of program that would be designed in the universities, as well as the respective resources ministry, which people will be employed from overseas. So we know that we have a figure, we need people from STEM, science, technology, energy, medicines, but not very specific, the skills that required from every sector. That will help us companies, will help us as the school to identify the courses, the people that we have to look for. I mean, this from my perspective.
And as we're all getting old, not only in Germany, but definitely in Germany, we'll probably need more nurses. And Dr. Kamyar, last word on as an advisor prediction.
Yeah, my prediction, as we discussed about everything, and you mentioned about accommodation for the future, I think that the work space and the work market will be more challenging, as the perspective of view of potential employees. It means that they need to search more for positions, and employers are looking for the variety of skills. So before you want to come here, and after you find the accommodation, my suggestion is to improve your different skills to be the proper choice to be chosen by the company.
You're so right, and the weather is not good enough for camping, so it's very important. So, Dr. Nilufar, thanks very much for organizing this. Dear guests and friends, also thanks, you were so kind to participate. And I also want to thank our audience for having the patience to be with us. We will be again with you very soon for another current topic of public interest. Thank you.